Hello, this is Jim Shorkey. This is Chapter 3, Displaying and Summarizing Quantitative Data, Histogram, Stem and Leaf, and Dot Plots. We'll start with histograms. For quantitative variables, we slice up all the possible values into equal width bins. So that could be, a bin could be 1 through 5, 6 through 10, 11 through 15, and so forth. Then the distribution is given by the counts or proportions within the bins, and the counts or proportions are represented as heights of bars and plotted against the bin values, and the histogram displays the distribution of the data. So this histogram that we're going to look at is one of homes that sold in August of 2019. Now the bins were created using the number of days the home was on the market before selling. So if we look at our histogram, our horizontal axis represents the days on market, and the bins are 1 through 9 days, 10 through 19 days, 20 through 29 days, and so forth. And then up our vertical axis are the count of homes that were sold that fell into those bins. So we can see that 17 of the homes that sold in August of 2019 were on the market between 1 and 9 days. We can also see that 2 of the homes that sold in August 2019 were on the market between 150 and 159 days. So we can see the distribution of this data. We've got clear and concise axes that are labeled. So this is a very easy histogram to look at and understand. Now this histogram is a relative frequency histogram of the homes that sold in August of 2019. So it's the same data that we looked at. It just, we're not representing it as counts, we're representing it as a percentage. So the counts on the vertical axis are replaced with percentages falling within each bin. So if we look at this histogram, we can see that 37.8% of the homes that sold in August of 2019 were on the market between 1 and 9 days. We can also see that 4.4% of the homes that sold in August of 2019 were on the market between 150 and 159 days. So once again, the exact same data we were looking at on the other histogram, this is just represented as percentages. It's a relative frequency histogram. The previous one we looked at was a frequency histogram that had counts. So next we're going to look at a stem and leaf display. Now stem and leaf display is similar to a histogram, but it shows the individual values. It's also easier to draw by hand than a histogram is. So the way that you would read this is the same data we were looking at before, and if you remember, there were 2 homes that were on the market between 150 and 159 days. So if you follow this left column down to where you see the 15, and then look out to the right of it, there's a 1 and a 9. So what that tells you is one of those homes was on the market for 151 days and the other home was on the market for 159 days. Another example, let's look down, follow that left axis down to the 13. So there was one home that sold between 130 days and 139 days. What was actually on the market for 138 days. So this also has the exact same distribution as the histogram. If you were to take this and flip it on its side, you can see that it has the same distribution that the histogram is. This is just easier to draw by hand, and it gives you the exact number of values. So you can see that, okay, we had a home that was on the market for 14 days. Okay, we had one home that was on the market for 67 days. So you know the exact number of days that it was on the market. This next example is a dot plot. Okay, a dot plot is a very simple display. Okay, it's very similar to the histogram. It's just that instead of using bars like the histogram would use, it just uses dots. But once again, this is the exact same data we looked at in our previous examples, and you can see that the distribution is exactly the same as it was in the histogram, in the relative frequency histogram, and then also in the stem and leaf. All of them have the exact same distribution, just displayed a little bit different. So in the previous chapter we were talking about categorical data. In this chapter we're talking about quantitative data. So it's important to know the difference between the two. When you're using quantitative data, you're using histograms. When you're using categorical data, then you're going to be using bar charts. So for histograms, it has to be quantitative data, which means that it is a numeric variable whose units are known.